My mom promised she'd support me when the time comes. The day I lost my job, she blocked me everywhere. I'm a 31-year-old man, and I learned two things before lunchtime on a Thursday: companies can disable your badge in 60 seconds, and a promise repeated for 20 years can evaporate in less. The promise was my mother's. When the time comes, I'll help, she'd say. Exams, rent hikes, the first car that coughed itself to death, always the same 8 words. It wasn't just comfort. She'd touch the drawer where she kept old birthday cards and say, almost casually, "Your father left a little starter fund. I'm stewarding it until you really need it. He died when I was 12. Stewarding sounded holy then. At 10:12 a.m. last Thursday, my manager read a script about market headwinds and slid a manila envelope across the table. I stacked my mug and the basil plant from my desk, walked to the parking lot with the other polite ghosts, and called my mother. The first call went to voicemail. The second cut off. The third returned a robot voice: "This number is not accepting calls from you at this time." I tried a text. Green bubble, not delivered. Email bounced. I called my sister, Lily, straight to voicemail. I tried Aunt Ruth. She picked up on the first ring and said hello in a tone that meant she already knew something and hated being the person who knew first. "I got laid off," I said. "And Mom," I didn't finish the sentence. The humiliation had teeth. Ruth went quiet the way she does when she's pulling a splinter from memory. "Come over," she said. "I'll put the kettle on." Her kitchen is always warm: onions, dish soap, old wood. She listened while I told her about the robot voice and the drawer and the sentence I'd been carrying around like a spare tire for half my life. When I finished, she said something I didn't expect: "She's been talking a lot about boundaries. New group she's in. I think she's practicing boundaries the hour I lost my job." It would have made me laugh if my chest didn't feel like the little drawer in her kitchen where she keeps rubber bands, stretched, tangled, none of them the right size. I drove to my mother's house anyway. Her car was in the driveway. The curtains were open. No answer to the doorbell. A minute later, a text from an unknown number: "Please stop. This is not a good time." It had her punctuation, polite, clipped. I typed, "I lost my job," and deleted it. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass of the door like that could prove I existed. Back in my car, I opened the glove box and a brass key slid into my lap. It was tagged Kingfisher in my father's handwriting. Kingfisher's storage sits behind the strip mall where he used to buy bait. I stared at the key like a stranger had put a question mark on my palm. The woman at the storage desk didn't ask for anything beyond my name and the key. The roll-up door groaned open on a wall of labeled boxes: Jack, Holiday, Tools, Taxes. I pulled the nearest Jack box down and sat cross-legged on the concrete. On top, school projects. Under those, a folder marked edu/trust. I wasn't ready to see the word trust printed in my father's block letters. Inside, a copy of a simple agreement. He had put a small life insurance payout into an account for Jack's beginnings, to be overseen by my mother, until the time comes, with one line underlined twice: "No strings, no begging." Behind that, statements. Balances I could have lifted with both hands if they'd been made of paper but somehow weighed more. Small withdrawals for years, then large ones in the last decade, memo lines that might as well have been written by someone afraid of nouns: house, tuition, roof, Bluebird. Bluebird was the name of a cottage we visited as kids. We've never owned property like that. At the bottom of the box, taped to the cardboard, a worn cassette in a plastic case. For M, in my father's pen. M for Margaret, my mother. I didn't have a player. I had the feeling people get in movies when they open a door they weren't supposed to find. Ruth still owns a tape deck. She dusted it with the reverence people give old tools. We sat at her table and hit play. My father's voice filled the kitchen, softer than I remember, less tired. He talked about wanting to leave us something that wasn't just memory. He asked my mother not to make me ask twice. Don't make him beg, he said, gentle as a hand on a wet shoulder. If it's a mistake, it'll be a small one. Pride makes big mistakes. The tape clicked. We let silence be heavy for a minute. Then Ruth stood, opened the pantry, and pulled down an envelope so old the glue had given up. She dropped this off here the week after the funeral, Ruth said. Said it was sentimental clutter. I couldn't throw it out. Inside, a copy of Dad's letter to me. Not long. Not grand. I loved you more than I knew how to show while the lights were still on, he wrote. You like to earn things. That's good. Don't make earning your religion. When the time comes, let help be help. I cried in the ridiculous way adult men cry when the right words arrive 20 years late. Then I drove home with the cassette, the letters, and a box of statements that made my stomach claustrophobic. That night, a message hit my phone from a number I didn't recognize. I'm not available for this. Respect my boundaries. The diction was my mother's. The pronoun made me feel 19 again. By morning, curiosity had mutated into problem solving. I cataloged the withdrawals. In 2016, $12,000, memo, tuition. I didn't go back to school. In 2019, $8,400, Bluebird. I googled Bluebird and found a charity my mother's church runs, a heritage scholarship for exceptional young men overcoming difficulty. At the bottom of the page, donor plaques, in honor of Jack Carter. My name carved in gold under a wing I'd never set foot in. I stared until the letters stopped meaning anything and then started meaning everything. There was also a list of scholarship recipients. One name I knew without knowing, Aaron Miles. I'd seen it in one of my mother's photo albums when I was a kid, Christmas Polaroids, a boy maybe 2 years older than me sitting on our couch with a stocking that said Aaron. I asked as a kid who he was. A friend from church, my mother said, and snapped the album shut. Sometimes a story rearranges itself so fast your body can't keep up. I made coffee with my hands shaking. Then I did the thing I didn't want to do, I went to my mother's church. It was a weekday. The foyer smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh printouts. A volunteer at a folding table recognized my last name and lit up. You must be Jack. We're finally installing the Bluebird plaque this weekend. Your mother told us about your father's fund. Such a legacy. Legacy. I felt like throwing up. Do you have a list of recipients? I asked, trying to sound like a proud son. She handed me a glossy brochure. Under, Alumni Success Stories, a photo of Aaron in a graduation gown. My mother's comment under it, in a testimonial font, some wings are built in secret. I drove until the brochure on the passenger seat stopped feeling like a spider. I ended up at a park, the kind with parents and slides and the smell of old ketchup. I called Lily. She answered, finally, whispering from inside a bathroom stall at work. I'm not supposed to talk to you right now, she said. Mom told you that? She's in a group. They told her grown children weaponize need. She's practicing saying no. Lily, did you know about the fund? Silence. She told me Dad left something but that it was best not to count chickens. She said it would make you complacent. And Aaron? I asked. Who is Aaron? Lily exhaled like leaking air. I thought he was Mom's godson. Then last year at Thanksgiving, Grandma said something about your brother, and Mom squeezed her hand so hard she stopped talking. After Grandma died, Mom cleaned out her desk by herself. She said it was easier on everyone. She paused. Jack, she blocked you because she thinks if she doesn't, you'll ask to see the books. The books? I almost laughed. Like we were a corporation. She keeps ledgers, Lily said, voice small. It makes her feel moral. That night, An email landed in my inbox from an address I didn't recognize, do_not_reply_boundaries@Proton, inside, a forwarded thread from Mom's group. Subject, Sons and the Money Script. A woman named Carol wrote, "When they come asking, it's a test. Do not reinforce helplessness. Protect your peace." My mother had replied, "My son just lost his job. He thinks now is the time." I'm shaking but staying strong. Hearts and claps in the replies, like a support group for people building doors in empty hallways. I went back to the storage unit the next morning because the concrete there made more sense than my kitchen. In a second jack box, under a broken metronome and my Little League glove, I found a Ziploc with documents I'd never seen, my birth certificate, a worn envelope labeled "hospital bill," and a postcard from a woman named Kathy with a picture of a kingfisher on it. "Thank you for everything that summer," it read. "Aaron asks about you. Please tell Jack he's loved. Even if we can't say how." The postmark was 4 months after I was born. Ruth's eyes softened when I showed her. "Your mother had a life before the version she narrated," she said. "We all did, but she's the only one who keeps editing it." I stopped sleeping, brain filing cabinets slammed open and shut all night. On Saturday, I went to the church because I wanted to see my name nailed to a wall. The plaque dedication was after service. People hugged my mother and told her how strong she was. When they unveiled the brass panel, I stood at the back and watched strangers clap for my father's money, my name, and a boy I'd never been allowed to claim as anything. "In honor of Jack Carter," it said, "for believing in wings." My mother wept at the microphone. "My late husband left us a small fund," she said. "I promised I'd use it when the time came." The time came for so many boys. The room applauded. I felt something inside me tip. Not rage. Not yet. Just vertigo. Afterward I followed her to the parking lot. She jumped when she saw me, then set her face to the expression she uses when she wants to look professional. "This is not the time," she said. "That's the thing," I said. "It feels like it never is." She reached for a sentence from her new vocabulary, "I won't be manipulated." "I lost my job," I said. "I found the statements. I heard Dad's tape. Don't make him beg." Her eyes watered and then narrowed at the same time. "He didn't mean this," she said. "You don't understand how hard it is to keep a house standing. Your father's fund kept us alive. It kept Aaron alive." "Who is Aaron?" I asked. Soft. She looked over my shoulder like someone would rescue her with a better word. "Love is complicated," she said. "And none of this is your business anymore." "That's the part that confuses me," I said. "You made it my business every time you told me not to worry because when the time came, I stopped." She put her hand up like a school crossing guard. "This conversation is over." She got in her car and shut the door. I stood there with Dad's voice in my head, with a brass plaque winking in the sun. When the time comes. It had come. And my mother had given the clock to someone else. On my way home, Aunt Ruth texted, "Come by." I found something else. In her living room, under a stack of hymnals, she handed me a plain white envelope with my name. "Your grandmother mailed this to me to hold," she said. She knew Margaret might clean too hard. Inside, a single page in Grandma's shaky writing. "If you're reading this, your mother has put herself between you and a truth. She loves you like a manager. Forgive her later. For now, the key taped under the junk drawer goes to Bank Box 118 at 7th and Pine. Use it when you must. The time comes without needing to be announced." I turned the note over. Taped to the back, a tiny key. I sat in my car outside the bank for a long time. The safe deposit room was humming and fluorescent. Inside box 118, 3 things. A savings book with a small balance in my name, a fraction of what those statements had shown. A photo of my father at the lake with a toddler I recognized as me. And a cassette labeled 4J. My breath hiccuped. The bank manager gave me an apologetic look when I asked about a tape player. He didn't have one. Aunt Ruth did. I played it that night with the curtains closed even though nobody was looking. My father's voice again, and the sound of birds in some background summer. If by the time you hear this, you need help, take it, he said. If your mother cannot do what she promised, take it anyway. Your mother and I failed each other in complicated ways. I asked her to forgive me, I ask you to forgive her. But not at the cost of yourself. When the time comes, you'll know by the ache in your ribs. That ache is not weakness, it's the bell. The tape clicked off. I sat there feeling the ache like a fire alarm I'd been silencing with my sleeve for years. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number I didn't recognize until I did. This is Aaron. I'm sorry it's like this. Can we meet? I stared until my eyes watered. The time had come. Again. Aaron picked a diner near the bus station, the kind with cracked vinyl and waitresses who say, "Han," to everyone. He was 2 years older than me, or exactly what I thought 2 years older would look like when I was little, same brown hair as mine gone prematurely gray at the temples, the same weary kindness around the mouth. He stood when I walked in like I was someone he wanted to be gentle with. I didn't know how to start this, he said when we Saturday, I thought your mother would tell you. I kept thinking she would. How do you know my mother? I asked. The question sounded stupid even as it left my mouth. He smiled without amusement. I don't know how to answer that without using words that will make the room smaller, he said. He looked at the table. My mother, Kathy, met your father a long time ago. It didn't work. They stopped. Life continued. Then I was born. He came around when he could. He glanced up to see if I would flinch. I didn't. I felt it, then I told my face to hold. Did my mother know? I asked. He nodded. She found out after. They worked something out for a while that felt like peace until it didn't. Your grandmother knew. She liked me. She gave me cookies on the porch. Then things got formal. Money instead of visits. I think everybody thought that would be cleaner. And the Bluebird scholarship? I asked. He looked at his hands. I made a few bad turns. Your mother helped me get into a program under the church. It wasn't just me, it was other boys who needed it. She stretched the definition of stewardship until it covered the neighborhood. She also told herself a story about you that made it easier to spend the money on anyone who wasn't you. You were independent. You were resilient. You would hate handouts. I would have hated this, I said, and surprised myself by laughing. It came out sharp and lonely. Aaron nodded. She said that, too. We ate eggs because it gave our hands something to do. He told me about nights in shelters and one good counselor who wouldn't let him disappear. He said my mother was kind to him in practical ways and ruthless in ways she saved for herself. She doesn't like being the person who didn't save everyone, he said. So she rewrites the math. She blocked me when I lost my job, I said. Boundaries. He winced. She's in a group, he said. They have great words and no context. We talked for an hour. He told me he found me through Ruth after Grandma died and some papers surfaced that shouldn't have. He'd waited because my mother asked him to. She said you'd be fine, he said, and the words sat between us like a serviceable insult. He paid for breakfast because he insisted, it would be funny, if the son of the fund finally got treated, and then we stood in the parking lot like people who had just discovered they were a noun in common. Do you want to meet again? He asked. I said yes like I meant it. I drove away with the world replotted by a pen that wasn't mine. My mother didn't pick up when I called. She texted, please do not contact me until you can be calm. The word calm is a trigger when you've been holding your breath for a decade. I replied with a photo of Dad's letter. She didn't answer. I sent her a short, careful message. I found the boxes. I heard the tape. I met Aaron. I'm not angry at him. I'm not posting anything. I want us to talk like the three people who are most affected by your choices. 5 dots. Then nothing. Lily called later, crying. She's spinning, she said. She says you're trying to weaponize the dead. She says you're punishing her for helping the least of these. Lily took a breath. She also said you were never grateful. I told her you're the most grateful person I know. She hung up. Aunt Ruth's birthday was Sunday. She insisted we still gather. I'm old, she said. Hiding is for people with stamina. We met at her house. Our mother came because she knows pretending is a skill and family photos make good alibis. She hugged Lily, kissed Ruth, skipped me with a polite nod that hurt worse than shouting. I brought nothing but the letter and my spine. In the moment after cake, when the room usually disperses into dishes and small talk, I put my father's tape deck on the sideboard and the cassette on the tray next to the forks. I'm going to play something, I said. You can stay or not. Mom's face closed. How dare you, she said. Ruth put a hand on her arm and didn't move it. I pressed play. My father's voice filled our tiny living room. Don't make him beg. It did more work than any accusation I could have written. When the tape clicked off, nobody spoke. Ruth dabbed at her eyes with a napkin that still had crumbs on it. Lily stared at her hands like they were telling her a secret. My mother sat very straight. Then she stood and walked to the sink, turned on the water, and washed a dish that was already clean. She does that when she's building a sentence that will sound like a verdict. I kept this family alive, she said, back turned. I did what needed doing. The fund was never as big as you think. It kept a roof over our heads. It kept boys like Aaron from drowning. Your father made promises and left me to do the labor. I felt a part of me step toward her and another part sit down. This isn't about whether you did hard things, I said. It's about whether you used the sentence, when the time comes to sedate me while you wrote a different story about who deserved help. It's about whether you will ever say out loud what you did to my life with your love. She spun, eyes wet with fury. Your life, she said. What about my life? What about the affair I forgave him for? What about the neighbors who would have eaten me alive if they'd known? What about? Mom, Lily said softly. He's not the person who cheated. He's not the person you had to forgive. He's your son. The room went so quiet I could hear the tape deck cooling. My mother shook, and then something inside her collapsed the way a tent does when the pole snaps. He would have loved you the same, she said to me, not looking. Your father. He loved you more than anyone. He also loved badly in ways that made me build walls. She wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. I shouldn't have punished you with them. It wasn't an apology. But it was the first sentence that didn't come from a script. Ruth set a plate down and made the tiniest, most relieved noise I've ever heard. We didn't all hold hands and sing. We did dishes. That's our family's weird sacrament. While we dried, I asked my mother to do 3 things: tell the truth to the people who mattered, stop blocking me when the air gets thin, and sit with me and Aaron together once. No cross-examinations, no group slogans. She said she'd think about it. The next morning she texted, Sunday. Noon. My house. It was something. Sunday arrived like weather. Aaron came first with a box of donuts nobody ate. My mother moved around the kitchen like someone timing a performance. We sat at the table we'd bled on and laughed around and paid bills on. I kept my hands flat to keep from fidgeting. Mom started with the myth she prefers: we did our best with the tools we had. I said, and we also hurt each other with them. Aaron nodded like an amen. We talked for an hour without trying to win. My mother used the word boundaries 5 times and caught herself on the 6th. She said she felt like a dam that would burst if she touched the valve. Aaron told her he didn't need a mother now, he needed honesty. I told her I didn't want back pay, I wanted the infection named. She laughed once, bitter and small, when I said infection, and then surprised herself by crying in a human way instead of a righteous one. Near the end, she went to the junk drawer, dug around, and pulled out a key on a blue ribbon I recognized, safety deposit. Your grandmother outmaneuvered me, she said, almost fond. Good for her. She slid it across the table. There's a little left. Not enough to fix everything. Enough to keep you from drowning while you figure out what's next. I should have done this a long time ago. When the time came. She swallowed. I think the time came 3 times and I failed all 3. I didn't score the sentence. I took the key. I put it in my pocket without ceremony. Thank you, I said, because gratitude doesn't have to absolve to be true. After Aaron left, my mother stood in the doorway looking smaller than she has in years. I'm not a villain, she said. I know you want me to be to make sense of it. I don't, I said. I want you to be my mother. I can handle complicated as long as it's named. She nodded and looked at the yard like it might answer for her. Give me time, she said. And hold me to it. People always ask about the money as if numbers could organize the mess. The box had a few thousand, enough to buy me months, not miracles. I took a warehouse job through a temp agency because my body needed to know it could move heavy things and be tired at bedtime for reasons that aren't sorrow. I filed for the unemployment we pay into. I sold the extra monitor and the guitar I never learned to love. I made a list called Roof, a ledger where I practiced the opposite of magical thinking. My mother and I live in a tense truce. She still sends me paragraphs about doing my inner child work, which I pretend not to understand because we are not in the same class. But she answers when I call now, even if she answers with, I can't do this today. She unblocked me everywhere. It feels like very little and also like a door that didn't exist last month. Lily started therapy. She brings me leftovers and insists on normal stupid TV. If I hear the word boundaries again, I'm starting a swear jar, she said last week, and we laughed in the kind of way that lets oxygen back into a house. Aunt Ruth found an old photo of me and Aaron on Grandma's porch. Our father isn't in the frame. Grandma is, grinning like she knows the ending and still likes the story. On the back, 2 names, written in her slipshod script. Jack plus Aaron. Mine. I haven't decided what to do with the plaque at the church. They can keep it. Brass isn't justice. Brass is just brass. I know I can walk past it without throwing up now, and that feels like winning something. A week after our kitchen truce, my mother came to my apartment with a loaf of bread and a stack of ledgers. You don't have to read these, she said. I needed to show them to you more than you need to see them. The story I tell myself about myself is in there. It isn't as flattering as I thought. She laughed once, a sound with humility in it, which still shocks me. We sat. She said the sentence that cracked something old and hard between us. I was so busy deciding when the time should come that I missed it 3 times. We hugged at the door in that awkward way people hug when they are not certain if their bodies remember how. After she left, I played my father's tape again, one last time. I returned it to Ruth's drawer and kept the key. I don't need his voice every night. I needed it that week. People ask me if I forgive her. I don't know what forgiveness means in households like ours, where love was a project and help was a performance and promises were slogans stitched onto dish towels. I know I'm not keeping a ledger in my chest anymore. I know I'm allowed to be kind and still say no. I know the time comes without trumpets, it arrives like a pain under your ribs you can't stretch away. Aaron and I meet once a week now to drink coffee and try not to make a religion out of being almost brothers. We joke about hiring Grandma as our ghost accountant. We exchange texts about the weather and the way the light hits the lake she used to call our old mirror. It is not enough, and it is more than we had. The day I signed a contract for a new job, smaller title, better sleep, I drove to the storage unit and closed both jack boxes. I left the ledgers in Ruth's care because she knows what to keep and what to bury. On my way out, I turned the key over in my pocket, felt the tiny teeth press my palm, and thought, okay. Time arrived. Help did, too. Not the kind my mother promised, the kind she couldn't control. I don't have a moral. I have a few sentences I'm trying to live by. Help is a verb, not a headline. Boundaries are doors, not walls, they are built to open, not to be bragged about. And promises, even the good ones, have expiration dates if you store them in other people. Sometimes, late, I still hear the robot voice telling me I'm blocked. It startles me like a smoke alarm with a dying battery. I sit up, breathe, and remember my father's underlined line, no begging. Then I put my feet on the floor, make a plan for the day that doesn't require my mother's permission, and send Aaron a photo of the sky from my window. He usually replies with a picture of his coffee mug and the word, here. I want to say I know what to do now, as if competency were an inoculation. The truth is smaller and more useful. I don't know what to do, but I know how to start. I can sand a shelf. I can answer a call. I can open the window. I can make eggs. And when the ache in my ribs hums like a bell, I can say out loud, to the empty room or the person in it, the time came, and then, as unclimactic and holy as boiling water, I can ask for help without apologizing for existing.
Follow me for more stories.